nothing even comes close to what Tulsi did on Friday afternoon after our show. When we were all getting ready to pack up and go home, Tulsi drops this thread on X. And this thread is historically important because it's the first time that the deep state has come forward with proof of their own crimes. Because Tulsi, by every weight and measure, represents the beating black heart of the deep state. And let me explain that. Tulsi is in charge of 17 different intelligence agencies. She's the head of all of them. She's in charge of the CIA. She oversees the activities of all of those dark organs, and she's able to pluck the string and pull the threads and is able to see everything. And she's used her role muscularly over the last 6 months in order to create this manifesto. Don't miss it, ladies and gentlemen. Tulsi Gabbard, in her first salvo here, calls President Obama a traitor. Now, that's not Tulsi Gabbard, who ran for president and joined with President Trump on stage and decided to endorse President Trump as a Democrat, switch her party. This is the director of national intelligence saying that a seditious conspiracy, a traitorous cabal of bad actors usurped the will of the American people and engaged in crimes to take down the presidency of Donald Trump. This is in, of course, the year 2016 and 2017. It all happened on January 6th, ironically. It's too good. And we're going to break it all down for you right here before we get to our incredible slate of guests. Ladies and gentlemen, the guests who will be joining us today, some of them were targets of this cabal. Some of them had their lives destroyed, like General Flynn. Others, like Mike Davis, who will be joining us shortly, has simply been fighting this and has been telling this audience for years what was actually happening with the Mar-a-Lago raid. The Mar-a-Lago raid was actually about these documents. Oh yeah, baby. Let's cook. Here we go. Their goal was to usurp President Trump and subvert the will of the American people. Ladies and gentlemen, Tulsi Gabbard breaking it all down. Here we go. Tulsi Gabbard's report has, of course, broken the internet into, hold on, let me just grab the right thread. There we go. Yeah, that's the initial. This is the initial, and then this is the breakdown. No matter how powerful, every person involved in this conspiracy must be investigated and prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. The integrity of our democratic republic depends on it. We are turning over all documents to DOJ for criminal referral, says Tulsi Gabbard. So I'm going to cut everyone off of the pass. I'm going to cut the comment section off of the pass and say this. We're not here to cheerlead. We're not here for copium. We've used an enormous amount of energy on this program in order to rail against guys like Paul Ryan. Okay? And every time we get a chance to, we'll drag that man, because that's a perfect example of a cucked, limp dick Republican who comes out and like promises the base something and then cowers and runs away. The example that we use is Paul Ryan going out of the border to squee and tell us he's going to build Trump's wall. This happened in 2017. Of course, Paul Ryan didn't even put up wall funding on the House. Well, he controlled the House of Representatives with like a 30-seat majority. He could have given Trump anything he wanted, and he didn't even bring the funding bill. He didn't even bring a bill to the floor to fund the wall. Complete and total fraud. We've been lied and suckered and had the football pulled from us too many times. Linus, Lucy, Charlie Brown. We're done with those games. We need actual legitimate prosecutions now, and they need to happen immediately. Tulsi Gabbard saying, I hear you, and it's going to happen. The DOJ has all of the evidence. Here's what they have. Their goal was to usurp President Trump. America is finally learning the truth about 2016 intelligence was politicized and weaponized and by the most powerful people in the Obama administration to lay the groundwork for what is essentially a years-long coup against President Trump, subverting the will of the American people and undermining our democratic republic. Here's how. And she shares this spectacular graphic, but let's break it all down into the bones, okay? In the bones, and we'll have on experts to talk through this because they've been fighting this for their entire professional lives over the last 10 years. In its bones, here's what this graphic means. the intelligence agencies went to Obama and said Russia didn't do jack shit during the 2016 election. Sorry for my language. There's nothing. There's nothing there. Russia didn't hack our elections. Trump won, and he won walking away. Obama said, not good enough. Bring me something else. I want a report that shows that Russia did hack our election so that we can smear, slander, launch impeachments, and launch investigations against my successor here, Donald Trump. I'm not going to allow any of us to leave office until we have planted a poison pill that will destroy and kill the Trump presidency. Now, I remember a chat a long time ago with Trump's top advisor, still working for him today. And the chat was off the record. So let me just frame it for you here. And everybody will tell you this from the first Trump administration. The Russia collusion hoax destroyed the first Trump administration, destroyed all of its potential, stole all of its energy. Everyone was constantly under investigation. Every person who worked for President Trump assumed that their lives would be destroyed, that they'd all end up like General Flynn, who'll be on our show in just a moment. It kneecapped and killed in the cradle anything they could have possibly done. It stole from you everything that we were supposed to accomplish. The devastation and breakdown of this coup attempt, this seditious conspiracy, cannot be overstated. It was utterly destructive. It wasn't something cute. It wasn't like a couple jokes. It wasn't like a couple of CNN segments. It literally destroyed the will of the American people. Trump did not have the presidency he was supposed to have, and all of its energy, the vast majority of the energy, was poured into this. Why didn't we close down? Why isn't the border closed forever? Why did so many major accomplishments not happen in the first Trump administration? I think he had a good run in the first term. Why is this term so different? Because this didn't exist. This doesn't exist anymore. But it cannot be overstated how devastating this was to the president. For months, predicting the 2016 election, the intelligence community shared a consensus view that Russia lacked any intent or capacity to rig our elections. But weeks after President Trump's historic 2016 victory, defeating Hillary Clinton, everything changed. On December 8th, 2016, intelligence community officials prepared an assessment for the president's daily brief, finding that Russia did not impact recent U.S. election results by conducting cyber attacks on infrastructure. Before it could reach the president, it was abruptly pulled based on new guidance. The intelligence assessment was never published. The next day, top security officials, including Comey, Brennan, Clapper, gathered at the Obama White House to discuss Russia. Obama directed the intelligence community create a new assessment that detailed a Russian election meddling. Obama officials immediately leaned on their allies in the media to advance their falsehoods. Anonymous intelligence community sources leaked classified information to the Washington Post and others that Russia had intervened and hacked the election in Trump's favor. You remember those reports. On January 6th, 2017, the true insurrection day, days before President Trump took his oath on the Bible, DNI Clapper unveiled the Obama-directed politicized assessment, a gross weaponization of the intelligence community that laid the groundwork for a years-long coup intended to subvert President Trump's entire presidency. According to whistleblower emails shared with us today, we know that Clapper Brennan used this baseless, discredited Steele dossier as a source to push the false narratives. These documents detail treasonous conspiracy by officials. There it is, treasonous conspiracy by officials, the highest levels of the Obama White House, to subvert the will of the American people and usurp the president from fulfilling his mandate. This betrayal concerns every American. The integrity of our democratic republic demands that every person involved be investigated and brought to justice to prevent this from ever happening again. I'm providing all these documents to the Department of Justice to deliver accountability to President Trump and his family that American people deserve. So that's the core of the report. Let's dive a little deeper, shall we? Catherine Herridge, who's done excellent reporting on this, will take you through the source documents here There are at least 4 tracks of Russia collusion story. Context. There are at least 4 tracks to the Russia collusion story. Forgive me there. And again, Catherine Herridge, just such an excellent reporter on this kind of stuff. Remember, Catherine Herridge was at CBS News. She was fired for asking too many questions about Russiagate. She was fired from CBS for asking too many questions about Hunter Biden's laptop. Newly declassified DNI Tulsi Gabbard documents alleging intel manipulation, use of the Steele dossier to secure FISA surveillance warrant, unmasking scandal targeting General Flynn, predicate that opened the FBI's 2016 counterintelligence probe Crossfire Hurricane. Re-upping masking documents I first reported on in 2020. As you can see, the same names keep resurfacing. Clapper, Brennan, Comey, Lisa Monaco. You can see them here, ladies and gentlemen. Oh boy, and Joe Biden was part of it too.
Busy day? I get it. Quick-Star's got your back with a deal that makes mealtime simple and affordable. Right now, grab Quick-Star's ground beef for just $3.49 a pound. We've got you. Stop by your local Quick-Star today.
This is a monster break. And for this reason, let's click through the source tweet here from Catherine Herridge. Newly declassified records from DNI Tulsi Gabbard. Compelling evidence that the 2016 Russia collusion narratives was not rooted in credible intelligence reporting, but manufactured to fit a political narrative. It all really boils down to the president's daily brief, and that's where they're getting this information. Let's talk about the PDB, as it's called. President's daily brief is, of course, the president learning everything that is going on in the world. A lot of this is classified, the vast majority of it. It's delivered every single day, and the president gets a breakdown of where American intel community sees threats, vulnerabilities, their professional take on very important issues. It is the opposite of fake news. It needs to be rigorous, and you have to have a president that is informed of what is actually happening in the world. It can't be deep state subterfuge. It can't be a psyop. Then, of course, the country will burn. It has to be real. The manipulation of the president's daily brief for political purposes would be a very grave sin to the intel community. Maybe that's why there are whistleblowers coming forward right now. We'll get to that in just a second. This highly classified report, which is the daily national security analysis for the president, assessed Russian and criminal actors did not impact recent U.S. elections. They have it. We have the documents. Here's the document. Please. But after pushback from the FBI, then led by James Comey, the president's daily brief was spiked based on new guidance. Show the document, please. After the White House principal, Klein is at the bottom of the tweet. After the White House principals meeting, new intelligence assessment was commissioned and media leaks followed, reinforcing the narrative that Russia intervened in the 2016 election to help Donald Trump win the presidency and undermine the confidence of the system. What you're seeing on screen is the unmasked, declassified, which is insane. I don't think you've ever seen, there's never been a declassified president's daily brief. The fact that the Trump administration is doing this is the height of transparency. And I've, of course, never seen the deep state tell on itself, like expose its own crimes. It's remarkable. What we are living through is remarkable. This is remarkable. What you're looking at is the December 8th, 2016 President's Daily Brief, stating explicitly Russia did not impact U.S. elections. Hours later, the FBI withdraws its support and they kill the President's Daily Brief based on new guidance. What did we learn? That Barack Obama was in charge of that guidance. That Barack Obama pushed personally to have Clapper, Brennan, Susan Rice, and Annie McCabe and others concoct the Russia conspiracy theory and then to manipulate, to poison his President's Daily Brief in order to show that fraud. He commissioned a new intelligence assessment so that he could destroy his political enemy. We've never seen anything so evil. Margot Cleveland here, ladies and gentlemen. breaking it down, and here's further documents. Comey's fingerprints are all over this mess again. Comey was the first that Barack Obama went to. That'll be important later. But you can see here in the documents, it was first the FBI that said, no, whoa, we got to stop this. It was James Comey. Obama went to James Comey and said, you have to kill this. We have to launch something that destroys. And remember, importantly, James Comey is the one who whitewashed Hillary Clinton in this election. James Comey was the one who pushed the FISA warrant, where he lied to the FISA court. James Comey is the one who lied relentlessly before the Senate, before the House, on media. We have a supercut of it. We don't have time to play it right now. James Comey has lied about this and manipulated intelligence in order to attack General Flynn, for instance. ALX, you got to grab me that clip of him talking about Flynn. I got to get that in the show when the general joins. Obama is behind it all, ordering the assessment before Trump's in office. You can see Obama's urgency here in this breakdown. After the meeting with Obama, CIA leaks to the Washington Post. You remember these leaks? You remember the wrap-up smear? Remember Nancy Pelosi specifically talking about it? We don't even got to play it, but remember, in a moment of absolute drunkenness or senility, I'm not exactly sure, Nancy Pelosi broke it down. You make up, she breaks down exactly how this operation is going to go. You make up something to smear Donald Trump, you leak it to the press, that's called merchandising it, and then you say, well, the press reported it. This is exactly what they did with Michael Isikoff at Yahoo News. It's precisely what they did with the original reporters who leaked the Russiagate story and the Steele dossier. Leaks to Post included fake claims that formed the false narrative that Brennan later inserted into this into the report, Intel Community Report, that Russia interfered to help Trump. Whistleblower reveals he was sidelined when he objected to the findings. Whistleblowers, according to Tulsi Gabbard, are now coming forward and explaining exactly what happened here. Tulsi Gabbard says, get ready, we're just getting started. The Intel Community assessment not only affirmatively, but falsely suppressed. So everybody in the Intel community is like, what the hell, what the F is going on? What the literal F is going on here? We said Russia didn't interfere, and you're saying he did just in time for President Trump to get into office. Whoa, Clapper privately viewed the Steele dossier as untrustworthy, but they shoved it into everything, and it's untrustworthy because now we know that it was based on Russian spies. Russia did interfere in the election. They interfered on behalf of Hillary Clinton. We know this because, obviously, Ian Dranchenko and the reports, not the Her report. What I'm getting my ALX. What's the other? Help me out, ALX. What's the report on Russia collusion that did nothing? Did absolutely nothing and got nobody put in prison. Durham report. Thank you. 5 years of Durham report, and we got none of this. It's really a great question. The Durham report. Why the hell didn't you expose any of this? Where was it? We know that Hillary Clinton put together a Steele dossier based on Russian spies. Where did Christopher Steele have his sources? Russia. What were the Russian sources? Fake. What was the intention of the Steele dossier? To rig the election against Trump. Yes, Russia interfered on behalf of Hillary Clinton, according to the Durham report. Stupid Durham. I haven't talked about him in so long. What a fraud, that guy. All of this was just sitting there and none of it made it into his report. None of it. None of it. We could have learned this. When did the Durham report get released? When did it get released? 2022? 2021? We could have learned about this years ago. But instead, President Trump has to take a bullet to the head for us to get to this moment. Yeah. 400 pages long, the Durham report. 400 pages long. 2023? That bastard. And nothing. Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, none of it made it in there. It really makes you wonder. really makes you wonder. President Trump has to get raided. He has to get a bullet to the head. He has to get indicted 400 times. Wild. So the breakdown is here. The documents are there. And Tulsi Gabbard states definitively that we are going to get more, ladies and gentlemen. Tulsi Gabbard cannot fathom. There it is. Sorry about the John Durham thing. Like, I haven't thought about that bastard in such a long time. Makes me so angry. Here's a great headline. Tulsi Gabbard cannot fathom how John Durham missed all of the evidence in the years-long coup against Trump. Incredible. There was one man who wasn't missing it, ladies and gentlemen. One man who refused to miss it and who came on this show and made a lot of news and made a lot of enemies, frankly, by speaking the truth to this audience, by telling us what was happening during the Mar-a-Lago raid, by explaining the through line here, and never letting this bone go. He's an absolute bulldog. Ladies and gentlemen, his name's Mike Davis of the Article 3 Project, and he joins the show live now. These people are complete and total frauds. Are they completely and totally effed? Mike Davis, the floor is yours.
Yes. And as we've been saying for 3 years on your show and just about every other of the more than 4,500 media hits I've done over the last 3 years supporting defending President Trump, this is a criminal conspiracy against rights under 18 USC Section 241. When you politicize and weaponize intel agencies and law enforcement to go after your political enemies for non-crimes, that is textbook conspiracy against rights under 18 USC Section 241. So I would say to these Obama and Biden Democrats, including President Obama himself, President Biden himself, and all these other people who participated and helped cover up this ongoing criminal conspiracy against rights, I would say to them, lawyer up, because justice is definitely coming, as I've promised, and I'm going to make damn sure happens.
Can you explain what the statute of limitations is here, Mike? Is there any worming, snake slithering wiggle room here? Are there any technicalities that they're going to be able to hide under a rock over?
Yeah, remember this back in 2016, you had President Obama and then Vice President Joe Biden and Clapper and Comey and Brennan and so many other goons make up the Russian collusion hoax. They worked with the Hillary's campaign, the DNC, the Steele dossier. You had Perkins Coie law firm. You made up the Steele dossier. You made up the Russian collusion hoax. You said you were lying. You said that the Trump and his campaign were colluding with the Russians to steal the 2016 election. You fed this to the FISA court as bogus evidence. So you lied to the FISA court. You got an illegal spy warrant from this federal court. You spied on then presidential candidate Donald Trump. You continued to spy on Donald Trump when he was the president of the United States. You used his own FBI and his own CIA and other intel agencies to hobble his presidency. I remember when I went to the Senate Judiciary Committee at the beginning of his administration in 2017, and everyone was running around, including Senate Republicans, saying that Trump is a Russian asset because of this Russian collusion hoax. They destroyed his many parts of his first term. Now, it was still wildly successful because Trump is such a strong leader, but look what we're seeing now compared to his first term, and look at how much he's accomplishing now compared to his first term. That's what they were trying to prevent in his first term. His monumental accomplishments over the last 6 months, they tried to hobble the first time. And you talk about the statute of limitations, Ben. Generally, the statute of limitations for federal felonies is 5 years. So you say, oh, this was 2016. We're well beyond the statute of limitations. Guess what? You're not, because this is an ongoing criminal conspiracy. When you conspire, in order for the conspiracy to stop, you have to disavow the conspiracy. The ends of the conspiracy have to end. They haven't. They are covering up the conspiracy. They are perjuring themselves. We saw perjury by high-ranking Obama officials during this ongoing criminal conspiracy. I think it was in 2022. So we're well within the statute of limitations. And I would say to these Biden Democrats, justice is coming. I would be very, very scared if I were you. I don't think we'll put you in Mike Davis's gulag, the Viceroy's gulag, as we joke, as we troll. But justice is definitely coming, and I think the Bureau of Prisons will have plenty of space for these people.
So it's very interesting because you have a shining record on this program of telling us what's going to happen in the future. You did this with Letitia James and with Fani Willis, and it was a masterclass, Mike. It just rang like a bell. And people mocked you, and they laughed at you, and they memed you for saying that at the height of what seemed to be their engorged power, that Letitia James and Fani Willis, that it would snap back on them. And lo and behold, both of them are facing now their own federal charges and or their own prosecutions inside of the House or investigations inside of the House of Representatives. So Mike has a gleaming record on this. Talk us through what happens next. And if you don't mind, could you narrow it down to Comey, Clapper, Brennan, and Barack Obama? Will Barack Obama be able to claim presidential immunity on this? Can you claim presidential immunity if you're committing a crime?
He might be able to claim presidential immunity for his actions while he was the president of the United States, and they'll have to litigate that, right? That it's unclear whether he'll ultimately get presidential immunity for this. But I'll tell you this, it's an ongoing criminal conspiracy, and presidential immunity covers his actions while he's the president of the United States. They don't cover his actions when he's the former president of the United States. And when he's participating in the cover-up of this conspiracy, then he doesn't have presidential immunity.
U.S. General from Harbor Freight. Roll cabs, carts, accessories, tool organizers, and part trays. For the weekend mechanic and the accomplished technician. Only at Harbor Freight.
It's a major question that everybody is asking, and I'm getting some major pushback here from some of the usual suspects saying nothing will ever happen, Mike. No one will ever go to jail. It's just show. It's just the sparkler show, and it's poof, it's gone. Like it's not real ammunition. What do you say to that? And what do you say to the haters online that says nothing will ever come of this?
I think these haters online need to learn how to win instead of just crying and losing and throwing their peas on the wall like petulant children. So we don't lose at the Article 3 project. We proved that over the last 3 years when the Democrats and most Republicans left President Trump dead on the side of the road, a dead political body. We went and picked him up from the side of the road and triaged him and made sure that he was back in the White House. And we're going to make damn sure at the Article 3 project very publicly, very loudly, that there is accountability for this unprecedented Republic-ending lawfare against President Trump. His top aides like Steve Bannon and Peter Navarro, who went to prison, his supporters on January 6th, who were politically persecuted. These Democrats even went after parents for being outraged by gender chaos in schools and the resulting rapes in bathrooms. They went after elderly pro-life Christians for praying at abortion clinics. The Trump 47 Justice Department, led by Attorney General Pam Bondi and Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche and FBI Director Kash Patel and Civil Rights Head Harmeet Dillon and Solicitor General John Sauer and so many others, Dan Bongino, the Deputy FBI Director. The president has assembled an all-star team at the Justice Department, and they are working every day behind the scenes, putting big wins on the board for things that matter, like 15 of the last 17 cases that they've brought before the Supreme Court, they've won on the emergency docket. This is going to happen. This is going to happen. I'm going to make damn sure it happens because I am loud. I am vocal, and I am not going away. And I'm not like a cat. I'm not going to sneak up on you and jump on your face while you're sleeping. I am Cujo. I am a dog. I am barking down the street. I have been barking down the street for 3 years. And before I maul you and rip your face off to these Democrats, you know I'm coming.
So what does that look like? We've watched President Trump get arrested. We've watched President Trump be brought in for mugshots. Will we actually see a President Obama, a James Clapper, a James Comey, a John Brennan mugshot?
Nobody is above the law. And if there is evidence that any of these people committed a crime, they will face accountability. They will face severe legal, political, and financial consequences. They try to bankrupt President Trump for non-fraud. They try to throw him in prison for life 4 times for non-crimes. They try to unconstitutionally throw him off the ballots. And Joe Biden tried to get President Trump killed twice. And I don't say that lightly, but Joe Biden intentionally underfunded Trump's Secret Service protection twice, said that President Trump was the gravest threat to American democracy, and Joe Biden actually used the word bullseye on President Trump. And what the hell did Joe Biden think was going to happen after he did that? President Trump almost had his head blown off twice, one time by a millimeter and a millisecond. He was saved by the grace of God. President Trump is on a mission to save America from these evil Democrat Marxists who are subversive and who are trying to destroy our country from within. And it starts with their Trojan horse leader, Barack Obama.
I couldn't believe the language that Tulsi was using, Mike. You always have this mealy mouth, limp wrist, limp dick language from Republicans, like, we really hope that there's accountability, and this is better for, we need to restore norms, right? So another Republican administration would say it's about norms, okay? Like it's about the dignity of the office. Tulsi straight out saying it's a seditious conspiracy. That's what Stephen Miller said. Tulsi said it's traitorous activities. These are legal words. How do you charge seditious conspiracy? How do you charge treason, Mike? Can you educate me?
Yeah, treason's where you lead a revolt against the government of your country. You're trying to take down the government of your country. It's usually working with foreign actors under our constitutional treason statute. But you may have that here. You may have that with the Steele dossier, because you had the Democrats with the Steele dossier working with foreign governments to make up this fake intel to go after President Trump. And I've told you my theory of this case. This is what I think. This is why I think they did it. Hillary Clinton had her illegal home server as the Secretary of State, not only with our nation's most classified secrets, which is espionage. Maybe there's some Benghazi material that led to someone's death. Like the ambassador's death. Maybe someone hacked that, and that's how this ambassador was able to get killed. But separate from that, it had the Clinton Foundation pay for play foreign bribery schemes. The Clinton Foundation is taking millions and millions of dollars from shady foreign actors. What was Hillary Clinton doing in her official capacity as the Secretary of State to take this money to the Clinton Foundation to underfund their lavish lifestyle, their private jets and their glamorous travel and glitzy lifestyle? What was she doing? We'll never know, because when she got subpoenaed, she destroyed her server with BleachBit, her home server in her closet. She took a hammer to her phones, clear obstruction of justice, clear conspiracy. Of course, nothing happens to her because she's a Clinton. But guess what? Maybe, just maybe, our worst enemies like China and Russia hacked that server, and maybe they had a copy of it. Maybe Russia was going to put out a copy of Hillary's corruption before the 2016 election. So maybe that's why Hillary Clinton and her campaign had to make up the Russian collusion hoax. So if this came out before the 2016 election, Hillary can say, you can't believe this stuff. This is a campaign dirty trick by President Trump. He's working with the Russians to interfere in our election. Don't believe any of this material. And you say that sounds like a crazy conspiracy theory, Mike. How can you possibly think that? They did the same thing in 2020 with Joe Biden and Hunter Biden's laptop from hell. They had 51 former intel officials working with the CIA, putting out BS that Hunter Biden's laptop of the Biden family corruption had all the hallmarks of a Russian disinformation campaign. You can't believe it. And not only did they do that, they censored the New York Post, America's oldest newspaper. They colluded with big tech, Google, Amazon, Facebook, and Apple to deplatform the New York Post, take the story. You couldn't even get the New York Post story on the internet, and they censored everyone on big tech platforms who tried to share the story. They deplatformed them. They covered that up. And we know that if the American people in 2020 had known about this laptop from hell with this Biden family corruption, there's no chance Joe Biden would have been able to rig and steal the election. Trump would have won by a landslide, right? And so then President Trump was going to declassify Crossfire Hurricane. He fought the deep state for 4 years to declassify, right? And his own political people at the Justice Department, at the FBI, at the DNI didn't do a damn thing until Rick Grinnell and Kash Patel went over to the DNI and unclogged the drain of the swamp for the intel community and got Crossfire Hurricane almost there. And then John Radcliffe, who became the DNI and is now the CIA director, and Trump